Harry's Wife, part 104.31. It's her I'm after. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As you know, Harry's Wife is something of a Marmite character. Many people dislike her. There are those that like her. There are some which love her. And there are some which would be said to hate her. The group that doesn't find favour with her is growing larger as a consequence of the repeated exposures of her behaviour. But it would appear that someone has got Harry's Wife very much in his sights, and according to an opinion article by Simon Kellner of iNews, the headline reads, "It's Harry's Wife I'm after. Those bullying the Sussexes are out of step with the national mood." So it would appear that there is a potential supporter here who suggests that bullying the Sussexes are out of step with the national mood. An interesting observation, which smacks of another PR piece, to try and suggest that once again that Harry's wife, and Harry to an extent, are the victims, and that by not liking them, that equates to bullying them. That by expressing disapproval of their behaviours, that automatically makes you a bully. It does not. In the world that we live in, freedom of speech is paramount. People are allowed to express their views. And unfortunately, too many people in the world are stupid, and they don't critically assess the information that is placed in front of them. They don't sit and consider it. They read the first two paragraphs rather than reading the entire article, something, of course, which cynical tabloids play upon. They cause you to believe something about an individual, and then the lazy brains read the first two paragraphs and then think, "Oh, I need to go and get an egg butty now." And then they don't read the rest of the article, which makes it clear that what was stated in the first two paragraphs isn't what you think it is. But they rely upon doing that to ensure they can't be sued for defamation, and the fact that many people are too lazy to keep going down and drilling to the actual facts of the matter. They swallow the headline and the corresponding first two or three paragraphs. People fail repeatedly to look at the information that's presented to them and then look at information from other sources to make a critical assessment. They fail, as I repeatedly encourage you not to do, they fail to go to the evidence. And I repeatedly encourage you, of course, to go to that evidence, to look at the actual evidence that you're dealing with to form a balanced opinion. Your opinion may disagree with somebody else's, and you're entitled to express that, but make sure it's well-founded. Find evidence that supports it. Don't just give that knee-jerk response. And I invariably encourage all of you to go to the evidence because it actually helps you make sense of the narcissistic ensnarement in which you find yourself. It causes you to realise that you've actually been catastrophizing. It causes you to realise that the situation isn't as bad as you thought it once was. It causes you to realise that you're having an emotional response rather than a logical one, and that by applying a logical one, you find a way through the situation and you feel a lot better about what you're dealing with. Repeatedly, of course, Harry's wife doesn't go to the evidence because she operates in a bubble of delusion, as do many of her supporters. And by calling people who simply disagree as bullies is both disingenuous and simplistic. The fact is, people are entitled to express a contrary view. And of course, there are the sugars that will express a contrary view to the content of my material and that of others, and they are allowed to do it. The problem they have is that the basis on which they predicate their opposition is easy to kick through. It's easy to break through and demonstrate that it's wrong. But their opinions they're allowed to hold. But they, like certain members of the woke brigade, engage in this behaviour of, I'm allowed to say it, but the moment that you say that I'm not allowed to say it, or that you seek to contradict what I have to say, I'm going to cancel you and shut you down because you're a hater, you're a bully, you're a racist, you're a misogynist. The world ought not to work that way. And more people are sick and tired of being told that they are invalidated, that because they're expressing an opinion that the speaker doesn't agree with, that they can't express it. That must never be allowed to prevail. That is why people such as I, by presenting the evidence and analysing it and letting you make your minds up about it, are increasingly important in this polarised world. I repeatedly explain to you that the news articles and videos that I provide, I let you determine the veracity. I'm not here to tell you how to think about the content of it. I'm here to explain to you that if you accept that material, this is what it means through the narcissistic prism. If you don't believe the material in the first place, that's fine. Your view might be misplaced because the veracity of that material is pretty unimpeachable. In other instances, it is questionable, and there is no doubt that some of the nonsense that is spilt by some of the tabloids is highly questionable. But it's for you to make that determination. My role is not an investigative one. There are other people with channels who go over the detail of Harry's wife's behaviour and say, look, for instance, this was a moon bump that was folding here, and because she dipped down to her knees at this juncture, that means she can't be with child. You're entitled to look at that and think, do I agree, do I disagree? That's up to you. You won't find me analysing that. What I explain to you is, would it be possible, for instance, that a narcissist would use a moon bump? Would it be possible that a narcissist would lie about having children? Would it be possible that a narcissist would pretend to have children when they do not? This is a channel about narcissism, and therefore what I do is utilise that material to help teach you about narcissism. But I allow you, because the majority of my valuable viewers are of intelligence, to work it out for yourself as to whether you accept the evidence that's being put forward prior to analysis. Here, the suggestion is that criticising the Sussexes is tantamount to bullying, and it's not in step with the national mood. And who is it who's after Harry's wife? The article states, Harry can keep his princely title. It's Harry's wife I'm after. So said the veteran journalist and author Tom Bower on breakfast television only the other morning. Minutes after these words had spilled out of his mouth, Bower was trending on Twitter, which was no doubt welcome news for the publishers of his latest work, Revenge, Harry's Wife, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors. It may all be in the name of good business, but in the cold light of daytime, the article states, I would hope that Bower regrets his rather unguarded remark, which is at best ungallant and could be seen as bullying. It does tend to support Harry's view that his wife was the object of persecution by the British media. Well, just because one author says that he's after Harry's wife, that is not persecution by the British media. Bower was on Good Morning Britain to promote his book, but he couldn't have foreseen the verbal fusillade he received from fellow author and historian Tessa Dunlop. Yes, she also has a royal book to flog. You accuse them of rank hypocrisy, she told Bower, but you are sitting there in your little establishment position, raking it in off the back of their arguable misfortune, which I would argue they brought on themselves, but anyway. They are a different generation from you, Tom. Let them be. This, it must be said, was the overwhelming tone of the reactions on Twitter. Really? I don't think that's right, but there we are. Which, unreliable and self-selecting though it may be as a forum, is the best barometer of public opinion we have on the matter. Well, I would suggest that Simon Kellner hasn't looked at an array of responses, because there is very much a battlefield on Twitter between those that are pro-Sussex and those that are anti-Sussex, and there are vociferous voices on both sides. I have long suspected, the article continues, that the likes of Bower and Piers Morgan have not accurately gauged the mood of the nation when it comes to Harry's wife and Harry, and empathy towards the former royal couple is widespread, particularly among young people. Again, that paragraph to my mind smacks of PR spin. Given that multiple polls point out that both Harry's wife and Harry are unpopular, save amongst young people, to say that Bower and Piers Morgan haven't accurately gauged the mood of the nation strikes me as ridiculous, and this is an attempt to nullify the threat to control posed by the likes of Tom Bower and Piers Morgan. You only have to see on social media the number of individuals that support Bauer and Morgan, even where they say, I find Morgan a pompous ass, but he's talking the truth. You can also see that many people dislike Harry's wife particularly strongly. And that's in the United Kingdom, and increasingly so in the United States, where people are just either not bothered about her or haven't got any time for her. The article continues. Certainly Bauer's hard-hearted approach on GMB, they are making their money out of lying, they are just peddling their titles, he said bluntly, will have not persuaded people of the rightness of his position. Again, I think that many people will regard such a position as correct. Bauer believes that Harry and Harry's wife should be stripped of their titles, and it's the forthcoming publication of Harry's unflinching memoir, Spare, the Sussexes are really doing their bit for the publishing industry, that is, in his view, final proof of their unfitness to be called Duke and Duchess. But Bauer gives the game away by blaming Harry's wife for this book, even though it is under Harry's sole name. Again, Mr. Kellner, if you understood the way that a narcissist behaved, and you understood the dynamic between this narcissist and her primary victim, you'd realise that this book is very much all about her. She puppets him. She's encouraged him to write it, because by proxy she asserts control over third-party members. That's what narcissists do. And it's as a consequence of Mr. Kellner being ignorant about narcissists or downright naive that he fails to see this. The article continues, rather than direct his ire towards a fully fledged member of the royal family, he says that this book is really Harry's wife. Harry's wife is the person who has implicated this agenda. He offered no direct evidence to support this point, or his suggestion that Harry hadn't even read the book. The evidence is that this is what narcissists do. And we know, because of the way that Harry's language has changed and his behaviour has changed, and that this is what narcissists do of their primary victim, that she is the one that's controlling him. The article continues. It was all Harry's wife's fault. That was the direct charge, which predictably drew the accusations of racism, boring, misogyny, boring, and xenophobia, boring on Twitter. I have no brief for either Harry or Harry's wife, and I don't know what the veracity is of Piers Morgan's accusation that they told 17 lies during the Oprah interview, a claim repeated by Bauer yesterday. Well, Mr. Kellner, perhaps if you actually watched the interview and then looked at all of the material surrounding what they said, then you'd realise that she told the lies. You're meant to be a journalist. I'd have thought you'd have gone and done a bit of investigating. They may be self-regarding fantasists out to make a quick buck. That's the Sussexes, by the way, not Morgan and Bauer. But when a respected author, a man in a position of power, goes on TV and says, it's Harry's wife I'm after, you have to doubt whether the story we have been presented is entirely objective and not, in fact, motivated by spite. It isn't motivated by spite. Tom Bauer took exception to the lies that Harry's wife has told, and being a purveyor of truth as a consequence of his meticulous research, has decided enough is enough, and he wanted to expose her lies. This article demonstrates why some people just simply do not get it when it comes to Harry's wife, and why they would do well to access my work about narcissism so they'd wake up and understand. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.